more than enough. It's just finding that extra inspiration to, again, give EDG that extra edge over the competition. We're into draft now, and we see there are Ivern bans, there are Zir bans. The meta has very much shifted away from early summer. We're not seeing nearly as many jungle bans of the aggressive jungles. Yes, the Vi comes through, but you can see where the priorities are starting to change.
So what they want to go for and where they want to try and bring this draft. Of course, the Ivern kind of been seeing fringe. It was almost permaban right on the day one of 12-13. Or sorry, 13-12. Getting my numbers mixed up. It's still far too early in the morning. But again, you know, kind of recognizing that Meteor has been one of the better players on LGD. I feel like Meteor and HYCAN have had some very good synergy with each other to try and build up this roster for LGD. And again, look, when you're at the bottom of the table, you'll try anything. You have to try something because the only way is up.
I wonder what's going to happen with the AD carry champion pool. You see that Tristana is often put in towards the mid lane. There is the chance that it gets flexed towards bot side as well. Fairly versatile pick at this point. But one of the things that we have been seeing about the meta is when stuff like Milio is banned, bot lane takes a bit of a backseat in the draft. We're often seeing AD carry and support picked up in picks 4 and 5 rather than very early into the draft. And that means that normally you got a couple of extra bans thrown towards it. Now, Milio is of course open in this draft. If you're going to play a long-range scaling kind of bot lane, that could be locked in early because that Milio is open.
See where they want to try and move this draft right now. The Jace is open, so we could see a Maokai being locked in here for the side of EDG with Jace as the next pick as well. So that would be my estimation here for EDG. LGD, however, have got the Tristana, which can be flexed over. And of course, for LGD, Envy is out, LPC is in. So we are seeing where this team can kind of work with this draft. It's a little bit of an unknown factor. I like the fact that teams at the bottom of the table will just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, because what else are you going to try and do, to be perfectly honest? There's no real, you know, kind of option to kind of say with it. And if you want to change AD carries, maybe change up your draft a little bit, that's a good way to go. So see where they want to try and put this Tristana. For the moment, we will assume it's going into HYCAN's hands while they look to see where they want to put this Tristana. Maybe we get ourselves something crazy in that top side. Nope, never mind. I should have known. It's going to be the Cassante.
Exactly. And again, now we are starting to see really why we're seeing more varied AD carries, right? Because we're heading into the second round of bans, and now suddenly bot lane is starting to get a bit more thin on the ground. Ziggs is going to be removed. When you have the AD mid laner, you have to think about where your AP sources of damage is going to come from. You have a full AD topside if this Tristana goes in towards mid EDG, removing the premier AP kind of marksman insert, I suppose. It's not quite the same. It's a bit of a replacement, but then you see someone like Gala play it and you think, okay, maybe they are really a AP carry on that bot side. On the other side, Uzi had an awesome Ashe game. That's going to be removed. And given that you have double frontline right now, it wouldn't be out of the question to maybe save the AD carry pick for the last and maybe see if there's a Vayne angle.
Possibly a Vayne angle. We'll see how EDG want to work with it right now. Is you know, or either EDG or LGD, either or could really kind of go for it. But I would argue that EDG would definitely be the premier of Vayne carries coming into this one here. We do like to see them maybe go towards their support first, but no, they want to get that counter pick for support, so they're going with the Xayah. Might see the Rakan picked up here by LGD just to deny it, but cannot deny that when you have something like Sejuani, you would love something like a Nautilus or a Leona to kind of complement that setup there for yourself. So see what they want to go for. It looks like the FLL is going to be locked and loaded here for LPC, and I don't think there's going to be anything else they're going to be kind of thinking about here.
FLS helps you kind of throw in that ultimate on top of the big engage for something like a Sejuani, something like a Alistar going in. It does mean you give up the Rakan. And now you're going to face against that Xayah Rakan. Of course, the Alistar, very good at getting into the front line and buying space for your other front lines. When you have 3 tanks in the front, going right into the fight, it allows them to kind of share the burden. You're going to have to do that quite an amount, though, because you're looking at 2 full AD teams facing... I don't think I've seen this before. These are 2 full AD teams against some heavy front lines. Renekton, Maokai, Cassante, Sejuani, Alistar are going to have an absolute field day. They just have to build Ninja Tabi and a little bit of armor on top of it. These fights could last a very long time.
JJ is gonna be doing so much damage with his demonic embrace rush. So the Maokai does have a small bit of AP, but again, it's nothing LeBlanc or we'll say Syndra worthy of burst levels. So I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that it's kind of putting a lot of emphasis onto the likes of Ninja Tabis or kind of any kind of small little bit of armor. I will say though, on the side of the LGD, you have got the Sejuani where that, Merc Treads can be a little bit more forthcoming in a lot of senses, but there's, other than that, apart from the junglers, there's actually not a lot of huge engage potential from either of these sides. So both these teams kind of looking to scale up with their kind of pseudo double AD compositions.
I think very interested to see what happens around early snowballing, because you have a team with a strong level 6 mark from EDG. It's not like the level 6 is weak from LGD though. When you come around Herald, if you give that up to a Tristana, it often works out very poorly because they destroy towers very, very quickly. Can't really afford to give that one over. If this Herald snowball comes through towards that Tristana, maybe that flips the game into a snowball state.
I'll have to wait and see. Like we mentioned earlier, if you're just joining us, this is LGD's last chance to keep themselves in the playoffs. If they lose, they are mathematically eliminated. For EDG, they're part of the medley of 6 wins, Larry's all the way in the top 6, top 7 of our team. They want to try and separate themselves out, move themselves further up in that playoffs gauntlet. Have to wait and see how it all unfolds as the Gyos roar.
Crowd is very loud and on point today. Getting ourselves onto that rift though. So, again, we kind of pointed out that tanks are going to have a pretty good time in this game, because there's so much incentive to build all of that armor. And yes, you will have a little bit of magic damage coming out of that Maokai, but it's not going to bother the front line. It might help kill off the back line, because Tristana, Aphelios, they're not going to be tanking themselves. But besides that, it's going to be awkward. Uzi probably getting his flash blown here.
Most likely. Oop, flash in, flash out. It's as simple as. But they're going to jump back in on top of him, flash over the wall with 1 or 2 more auto attacks. Uzi is confirmed dead. And for LGD, this is exactly what you need to be doing. Throw in a spanner in the works. Make sure you're getting the team that is favored off kilter.
That was very greedy from Uzi. You just have to flash there, I feel. You're out of position. You're going to get pinned against that wall. You don't have a straight retreat line. Great trigger pull by Jinzhao and crew to get first blood on towards their team. Now, Uzi is going to be late towards lane. Very interesting what happens in mid lane, because Jace will get a free level 1 from this. It's not like there's going to be a bomb start from Tristana, which will trade harder. It was the W start, so it might be a trade of leads between mid and bot between the two teams.
We saw the little replay there on the bottom right. It actually was just a really good ward put down from Jinzhao. Just said, look, I'm going to pop it down here. Should anyone kind of find themselves in the brush, we can make an opportunity happen. And it was literally that. It was a ward that went down early. Uzi thought he was safe in the brush unseen. And it's just a really unfortunate kind of timing there for the EDG bot laner. I will be honest, yes, it's unfortunate. It's not the worst thing in the world. It feels bad, but generally speaking, in the grand scheme of League of Legends, First Blood doesn't have that big of an emphasis, at least not back like what it did, like, season 9, season 10.
It's true, but then you're giving the XP advantage over to an Alistar, but that's being turned around a little bit with some damage. The main thing is that it's stopping the Zyra being Zyra in the early game. They're going to get pushed in. They won't have as much wave control. We're seeing junglers on the same side of the map. JJ, putting out that tri-brush. What's his thought process here? Does he flash in?
Here?
He's trying to go for a bit of an awkward giant flash.
Yes,
That's what he's going for. All right, no flash on either of these bot laners.
Knock up. Ooh, actually interesting interaction there with the head buff. LPC doesn't have flash and no way to escape this one here. They're getting a little bit kind of greedy for 2 kills. And yeah, eventually Uzi kind of says, no, I'll try turn for this one. Never mind, that one goes over to the tree as well. But the sapling he dropped earlier is enough to slow him down. And JJ just kind of turning him around. Will not be able to get the flash down, but the quill is just enough. Mako picks up a kill. Poor Uzi gets nothing but 2 kills right back in this bot lane. But Meteor snuck himself in. They have no idea he's here.
Okay, but how long is it going to take Jinzhao and LPC to get back here? I don't know if he's going to be able to do anything. He might be able to stop recalls. How much is going to come out of this? There's no flash on Uzi.
Yeah, I think Uzi's probably dead here. There's plenty of damage here on the Sejuani, and they should be able to take him out. I will say, fair bit of damage on the return of that, but yeah, just really unfortunate there for Uzi. 2 times in a row, he just doesn't realize that the jungler, or even just someone who isn't in the bot lane, is lurking in the shadows.
This has been very strange. Early jungle pathing. I'm trying to think of words to go towards. That's the word I've got to settle on. Strange. It has been effective. JJ had a really good read on where Meteor had vision, despite the fact that early lanes hadn't necessarily worked out. In spring, this is the kind of game that would really mess with EDG, where the early game didn't quite go to plan because something weird ended up happening. But JJ, rolling with the punches that his team is taking, and as you said, bit of a strange interaction with the headbutt and the Grand Entrance coming in from the Recon. Couldn't quite cancel that combo. No summoners on either end means that's absolutely lights out. Even if that combo doesn't land, you're likely losing at least one, but does kind of help secure the second one as Jin Zhao is forced to retreat right into that sapling, as you were saying.
Very curious way this game has started off. It is still dead even in terms of everyone's gold for the moment. We have got a spread of kills. One for the mid laner, though, of LGD feels a little bit better than the one for the jungler and the support of EDG. You can see that this is why we see the Jace being picked up a lot of the times into the Annie as well. You just kind of are able to kind of make sure she doesn't have that big pushing power. She has to be a bit more of a team fight AD carry rather than just a straight up lane pusher. And he's just easy enough for him to soak in all this pressure, make sure that the likes of the Sejuani and the Cassante don't have an easy time ganking him in that mid side.
Really interested to see what happens when it gets a little bit later into the game and side lanes become a potential option. EDG are not a team that particularly like going towards side lanes, nor are they a team which has really found a lot of value through them. It feels like they really are just sitting and waiting for 5-5s a lot of the time. That's a dangerous level 6 bringing up from top side.
Ooh, Decade very respectful there. Recognized if he gets hit by the stun, he's almost certainly going to be going down. So really, really well done there by him. But Ala kind of having a much better time of it. And this has got a bit of carry in the top side that I think for the longest time, we've always had question marks about Ala. He has had good moments, of course, back on LGD, or LNG, excuse me. He was, definitely a much stronger pick. As I stopped myself for a second, the all-out comes in. Decade does not get the knock back, really. He's taking a fair chunk of damage, but without a flash. What the hell, Ala? He tried to flash in, maybe get a Q off cooldown, but that is just Cassante things.
I think Ala messed up his W. He didn't get the empowered Ruthless Predator. He ends up just getting one auto shy of the Fury needed for that. That would have been the kill. Ala barely misplaying that situation. Just as we were saying, there have been a couple of questions about this top laner. He's had some great highs. He was, particularly in spring, one of our very best carry top laners. Great Jax, great player of Cannon and Cannon counters even. He was one of the players who found some answers to the top lane meta. But Decade, he's a person which came in summer and has found some brief moments of success. It's been a little inconsistent from this player as well. But watch what happens here. He doesn't get the empowered W on that play, and he doesn't manage to get that damage to finish off the kill.
Very, very unfortunate. Very scrappy right now for EDG. You can feel that they obviously know there's a fair bit of pressure on them. Might see it engage in this mid lane. Knock-up just going to land onto the Alistair, who is forced to flash away, but immediately followed over by JJ, who is immediately taken in underneath the tower and killed. Jin Zhao will survive, and I mean, I'm talking about the pressure literally just exactly as I'm kind of saying it. We see the implementation of it because EDG didn't have to go for that big play. They could have just accepted they got the dragon, but they felt almost forced that they had to go for another fight, another bit of play to get something more out of it.
Yeah, in LGD, they go to the root of the issue and they kill JJ. I mean, what do you do with this Maokai at that point? You get
the root. It's Maokai.
I have to get like one laugh out of you, like one genuine laugh per cast. That's like half counts.
That one was definitely more like a well played. I see what you did there.
But Ala's also in trouble now, but has himself Dominus at least. Gonna not be able to play around this Herald. But yeah, I mean, flash down from JJ. It's one of the problems with the Maokai is that you can get pulled out of position much like you can with the Vi. And with that fight lost on bot side, it means their resets are late for the Herald.
Yeah, they're very, very late. We are going to see Jin Zhao just kind of engaging on the Fofo. Jin Zhao has not got unstoppable yet, so he is still very, very squishy. And now with the Nature's Grass coming out, that's just a straight up steal of an objective. This was 5v4 for the most part, to be perfectly honest, because LGD were all there, but Uzi kind of came up and realized, oh, you guys got this? No problem, I'm going back bot.
And that's a big win for EDG given the state of the game. LGD, it almost felt like they were going to take that for free. EDG get back in time. Most of the time around Herald, you're expecting to lose Herald fights against a Renekton because when he puts down his Dominus, he's so powerful. LPC knows he's in danger. Spot Maker over the wall and we'll be able to stop him from jumping on him at least. But that's a good Herald pickup from EDG. If they'd lost that, would have been potential of the Tristana Herald snowball, as we talked about a little earlier and around that draft. So that's crisis averted for them.
Crisis averted for now. Does keep the gold relatively even. LGD a little bit ahead because of those kills. And now Meteor trying to see if he can make something work with access to that Glacial Prison. Has 2 kills, so fairly well accelerated to becoming a bit of a tanky monster. Is the Sejuani. Hey man, that's it. I miss those days. It's funny because I think everyone misses, like, you know, diverse builds unless they were absolutely busted, like AP
Tristana.
AP Yi, Master Yi was the one I'm thinking of, where he literally like one-shot everyone, and it was not fun. It's like, oh, it's fun until it's not, and that's why I always find that, you know, you're kind of in an impossible position as the Riot devs to make diversity, but at the same time, if you try and make it diverse, it's just going to mean broken, aka Static Shiv.
The thing is that, like, there are some diverse builds which are good, right? I think a champion like Kale, I think, is quite a good example, where it feels like you have a similar identity between your various builds, even if the damage profile is a little different. As you see, another fight on top
Varus
side.
is a good example.
Yeah, Varus. Well, Varus is both a good and a bad one. Top side doesn't care about AD carries right now. They're fighting themselves.
Yeah, fight. Nah, nothing else is going to happen. I realize after the all-out and the Dominus was popped, neither of these top laners were going to be dying, so might as well just throw in my 2 cents of what I wanted to see happen. We will see an engage on this bot side. There's going to be the feathers going. Mako does get a nice knock-up. Re-engage off of that. And this is when the Xayah Rakan really starts to flourish in this laning phase. The past level 6, when you have access to the quickness and of course the Feather Storm, that's when this bot lane will start to become obnoxious for LGD to deal with. But speaking of obnoxious to deal with, Fofo just making sure that he's not getting caught out by any sneaky Sejuanis coming up behind him, and just going to be able to accept that this wave is going to be crashing into him. As, ooh, bit of a stutter step there. I feel like Mako maybe could have finished that one off for his AD carry. Not to be.
LPC just about to get around to the Infernum. Recall's not going to be stopped this time. Of course, Alistar has that ult now. And we have started to see a recurrence of the LPL Alistar. It's helping an awful lot. Ult is going to be thrown in mid, but Fofo cool as a cucumber.
Cool as a cucumber because he has JJ coming off the backside of this one here. Will be able to put down a fair bit of damage, and Meteor's going to be forced to flash away. JJ, with that Demonic Embrace, will start to tick down these tankier members. And already we're starting to see EDG just kind of calm the game down just a little bit. It was a little bit of chaos for the first few minutes, but for now, they're feeling much better about how things are going.
Good trade onto Hyde Shower. It's going to be a good amount of damage with even the non-accelerated Shock Blast onto the Tristana. But Mako without flash, without ult, a little bit awkward now. Not really sure what more they can do around this mid lane. It'd be good for them to get control of this lane if at all possible. Tristana tends to just perma-push and take control of that laning phase. I think with the Herald going the way of EDG and the Jace also getting a fair amount of farm and gold without getting punished in this early game, EDG are feeling pretty okay around this mid-jungle where they've sometimes found some of those difficulties in summer. In spring, it felt like they had a better handle on it. Going to move that pressure now down towards this dragon, get themselves the second of the game.
Should be no real contest, no TPs on anyone in this game for the moment. They're all on cooldown. Dragon confirmed. Hex Rift is to be coming. We are coming into a much more even state now, but of course EDG having those dragon stackings means that they own the kind of tempo decisions, if you will. Interesting enough, actually, 2 plates just went over to Hala. I'm not quite sure how or why he had so much free time there in the top side, but good to see there that the Renekton's still having a decent time up against the K'Sante, even if he did get the solo kill against them. Getting those 2 plates pretty much nullifies that.
Definitely helps, and will potentially help EDG take down some of those towers into that mid game. 3 plates on mid, 3 plates on top remaining for LGD's outer turrets. That's a lot of standing gold to be taken even after the plates fall. And if EDG can start containing LGD to one kind of lane, I think that works out very well for them, where they can play around Malkaels and Jace Shock Blasts. So taking down those kind of extra plates and side lanes will help them do that in the future.
Oh, good damage here from Decade. He looks to try and trade back just a little bit. Level 11's hit by both top laners means they are starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with the amount of damage they can put out in their ultimate forms. And we wait, Nightmare.
We do.
We wait.
We do.
We wait for more action. Potentially in 37 seconds.
Well, that is true. Second Herald, Tristana still on the Rift, and you've got Maokai ult to help with the siege coming in from Second Herald for EDG. If they were to get it themselves, that's probably an objective which both these teams will be angling towards. We just talked about EDG. Once they start taking down outer turrets, it feels like LGD start getting removed of a couple of options, because it feels like they're kind of constrained to less lanes. The Shock Blast can reach more people because everyone stood in the same lane, and that kind of sucks for LGD. And LGD, despite them being a team where we've often praised them for having strong strategies coming into game ones, this one's been a little bit harder won from them. They're still fairly even in the game. They're walking up towards the Herald, though. Maybe they're looking for a contest. Cassante has teleport. Will have to find himself an angle into this fight.
He's going to try and push in that wave, though, first. Right between the sticks is the accelerated Shock Blast as they try and confirm this. It's very hard to get back on top of this. I agree with LGD on this sense. You're not really in a position to fight this. Just take the tower bot side. It equals out to roughly the same thing. As Ala doesn't know the Meteor stuck himself into that brush. Fofo now getting a little bit of an engage on top of him, and Decade immediately goes all out. Flash forward because he knows he might be able to get the kill. Decade very confident on this pick right now, as Ala in a bit of a 1v2 himself will probably be able to keep himself safe and not really worried about the kind of damage that comes out from this Tristana in general. And that mid lane should be going down as well. And before anything else happens, before I need to recap anything, I would like to ask you a gameplay-based question.
Okay. Why do you need to qualify that? Because
I wanted to see if there was going to be action on top side from Ala, because he's got the moment going in straight away and Meteor's coming up top side. That's why I wanted to ask it, but it's going to be the ultimates burned. Ala is almost certainly dead. And they can just leave him to die. Tick, tick, boom. Here's my gameplay question.
Okay.
Meteor going for the Evan Shroud. Talk me through why we're seeing an awful lot more junglers, the Poppies, the Sejuanis, even sometimes the Maokais, go for these more kind of, supporty builds rather than what you would traditionally see them go.
I think particularly in this game, Sejuani can share the frontline duty a little bit with other members on the team. Jinzhao might have to do a bit of that frontline. He pops the ult. That's going to be the end of that, but mid lane outer turret has gone down. But I think when you have multiple tanks on the team, and you are a single target-based damage profile, you have double AD carries. If those two AD carries hit the same target, and then that gets amped up by the Even Shroud as well, it just adds a lot more to your gameplay, right? It's less about something like the Radiant Virtue, which is, oh, everyone's health bars need to be topped up. It's a bit more about AoE team fights, because that's the nature of the game. But you look at both these teams, they really want to be hitting the first target, and as it happened, Decade was the first target in this 2v1. Sucks for him. Didn't really get that opportunity to get that clean solo kill, as Fofo's teleported down towards bot side and sadly loses that in the extended play.
See, what I was actually trying to do, I was trying to jinx the fact that we're not getting action all the way. We usually get it when we start talking about gameplay aspects, but I think
it was the old LCK kind of charm where if you start talking about ice cream, plays start happening, because at that point it's like you have found nothing else to talk about. Surely eventually you'll be rewarded for your patience. Dragon spawning in 10 seconds. Think that one will definitely be more towards our flavor of gameplay, though. That'll be third Dragon for EDG, soul point for them. Mid lane priority, very important to get into River from LGD. That's the ult cast.
And a flash burn. Fofo gets himself away, but does cost him a summoner. Difficult, though, for the side of LGD to make anything else happen. I talked about it. Their only real form of engage, kind of instant engage, if you will, comes from the Sejuani. Yes, they can put Jinzhao in there, but without that ultimate, he's going to struggle to stay alive. Once he goes in, I don't think there's going to be a way out. Decade on the side here, trying to go straight in on top of Uzi, who kind of puts his feathers in a bit of an awkward place, if I'm being totally honest. Not really the ideal situation for it. There's going to be the Moonlight Vision, an immediate flash from LPC. Ala runs in after TPing down, trying to put down a little bit more DPS, and it's all very, very scrappy. It's all very all over the place, but Ala's on the Renekton, and in the mid-game, he is huge. LGD now recognizing they just cannot take this fight. Their health bars are so low, even lower after that accelerated shock blast, but not to be finished off for the moment. And that means that EDG will get themselves a kill and the dragon.
EDG have been getting these slim advantages around objectives, which are starting to really pile up at this point. First Herald, second Herald, both of them gotten for free at the end of the day. They're going to get themselves a soul point fairly easily as well. And what feels like a fairly low action game has, in the small skirmishes we have seen, all been benefiting EDG. Now they're going to take down this bot lane outer turret. They've already taken down that mid lane outer turret, which is EDG so much control around river and into the enemy jungle. You can see the amount of bot side vision EDG have. They are really putting LGD in a very difficult spot. When you're playing a double AD carry composition, you feel like if you don't get an early advantage, you can get outscaled quite early, and you can see that the damage is just not quite landing from them. Fofo, Uzi, completely safe from the initial engage. You've already wasted the big engage tools which you have, and now with that Moonlight Vigil, it's something, but it's not there for the rest of the team fight. You only have one of them, and it hasn't done enough. The damage profile is just not there from LGD in this fight.
LPC got to auto attack twice, I think, including the and you know, on top of that Moonlight Vigil, just not really able to do it. And honestly, we talked about how EDG and LGD have both built up very... Oh, excuse me. I'm going to stop here for a second as Fofo just kind of waits and be a bit of a spectator for the moment over the side of the wall. Decade using the Maokai to get himself out of danger. But talk about how AD heavy they are. I love the build path for JJ. It's gone for Imperial Mandate, which if you don't know, does extra magic damage on top of anyone who's slowed or impeded. And again, like you're probably thinking, oh, it's not going to be that relevant. It's not that huge of a thing. But again, it kind of leans back into what we were talking about of like having support items for the sides of, you know, when you already have so many tanky frontliners. So really like this from EDG. Really like seeing them kind of go for a little bit of a different move and question whether LGD should be putting down some magic resist or not.
This is the first Imperial Mandate that I've seen in Maokai. I mean, I do somewhat understand it. Of course, when you add in those extra bits of CC, we'll put the mark on them and allow a bit more damage to come through. Maokai, however, has always been a champion which has managed to flex their build a fair amount. So we'll be tracking this one, see if that one crops up anymore. We're back onto the map. It's still a slim gold lead for EDG. It's not at the point where EDG are exploding in terms of gold, but again, you look at these compositions, you just think that the Tristana and the Aphelios, they're not really hitting the targets that they need to. It feels like the Jace and the Xayah, they have much more access to the targets they want to be hitting than the carries on the other side. And that, to me, adds an extra bit of weight to something like that gold lead, because it's not a huge gold lead for the double AD carry composition of LGD. That's kind of what they needed. Instead, they're sat in a deficit.
Yeah, I think that's the problem right now, is that slowly but surely EDG have been kind of bringing themselves back into it. Like I said earlier, just kind of slowing down the game, calming themselves down. Uzi's had a little bit of a quiet one, but I will say he has also been hard targeted by the rest of LGD, which, you know, again, it's Uzi. I'm totally, you know, fair in the assessment that you should probably be hard targeting this guy. Hi, Chow. Yeah, he is probably dead, almost certainly confirmed. Mako gets that kill for himself. Very rightly earned. And again, this is the problem with LGD. They have great starts, and then we get to this point in the game, 22 minutes in, we're 2 minutes away from a Hex Soul, and a Hex Soul for things like a Jace and a Xayah is invaluable.
This team just needed to have that early advantage. They need to be perma-pushing with the Tristana and Aphelios and be able to keep EDG pinned back so they can't get value out of the Maokai and the Jace. They've not been able to do that. That kill happens past 20 minutes. Baron started.
Well, we're going to see what they're going to go for right now. There's a TP coming in from the Cassante. That will be a resource burn. They're going to jump straight in onto the rest of LGD. Good Moonlight Vigil puts out decent damage. Flash away to make sure everyone kind of stays alive for the moment. No accelerated shock blast to hit. But in a 4v5, LGD did not do badly, and it all comes down to how they utilize their ultimates.
Yeah, LPC bailing out his team. That was a huge Moonlight Vigil. It gets enough damage onto Uzi that EDG aren't convinced about taking the fight afterwards. We're seeing some teleports back onto the map, so EDG are not completely left alone, but they've got a lot of resets, and now they've left the Baron alone. LGD, this is their time.
There's a double TP potential coming in, but they have got the Hex Gates, remember, so they know they can get here and fit plenty of time. Uzi is kind of in the mid lane, not really in a position there. JJ needs a flash over, but he will not be able to confirm. Now do you look for the fight afterwards? A Hex Flash from Jin Zhao just to try and separate everybody out. The Maokai is dead. So plenty of good health bars here for the side of LGD. They get the Baron. They may just be able to get out as well. And honestly, this is such a huge momentum swing if they can survive. You can see EDG do not want to let this one go for free, but I don't think they've got a choice.
That is exactly what LGD needed. EDG, you can see how desperate they are to try and get some kills back. Mako has flash, has ult, but again, going into these turrets from the Aphelios, so annoying on the retreat. Those extra autos coming through at 2 items. We saw how much damage LPC did around the initial Baron start from EDG. He can't go towards him again, and this is exactly what LGD needed. EDG, they haven't set themselves up really around this Dragon now because the Baron setup took so long. LGD, they need to hammer home this kind of fight, though. If they give up the Soul, all of their hard-won Baron fights will be just nullified.
Oh, Meteor. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what he was hoping to happen there, but not that particular example. Now we go straight back in towards this fight. I will say, though, you've lost a lot of summoners here on the side of LGD. EDG, do you want to just kind of maybe leave this one go? They would love to try and get this Hex Soul to try and nullify the advantage of the Baron. Here we go. There comes the Nature's Grasp to try and jump on the Jin Zhao, immediately cleanse it. There's the feathers to go flying. Knockback onto Uzi, who has got a flash available to him. They've killed the Aphelios, the Alistair as well. Decade is trying his hardest, but LGD lose 4 in a blink of an eye, and the Hex Soul as well. They wanted it too much, and EDG knew they could take the fight.
The carries were on the opposite side of the fight to the engage to LGD. They just couldn't get the damage down onto the right people. They didn't stick onto the objective. I feel like LGD, they should have just gone for another flip smite at that point. They were not winning that fight. And EDG, they punished their indecision. They punished their split team fight. And suddenly, the Baron, which was hard won, has basically been nullified. EDG, they spared their blushes somewhat by a good Dragon fight.
Have a look at the replay again, because Allah's on a flank. They see him. They know they're getting kind of like pushed into this. But again, like you said, the carries are just way far away from this, and they just can't do anything about it.
The fact that both of the AD carries are completely shut out of the fight by one Maokai ult, they both get rooted up, that is absolute disaster for LGD. I feel like that just screams panic to me, because they were almost down on that Dragon. It felt like maybe they could have had flashes out at the back of the pit after just focusing down the objective. They didn't get the timing right, didn't get the fight afterwards, and now EDG, they have one Baron buff to deal with, but they have themselves a gold lead still, they have themselves a Hex Soul. Suddenly all of that poke, all of that ability to run forward and run down LGD gets that much more powerful.
Come back in. EDG now have gotten pretty much all of the Baron buffs off them. There's only 15 seconds left onto HYCAN. Not really going to be a lot. Look at the damage just from one sapling as well. This AP Maokai, kind of support AP Maokai build is maybe something that needs to be looked at a little bit more. It definitely feels like it's kind of shoring up a lot of the compositional issues in terms of damage profile that we were talking about right off of Champ Select. So curious to see how this one kind of develops here for the side of LGD. And what do you do as LGD? You kind of need to hope and pray that someone gets caught out and you're able to let these AD carries do their thing. But with the Maokai and the Renekton, it's so hard to actually walk up and do anything.
You're just looking to survive for now, look for some kind of pick-off where you can get one single target down. But EDG, this is the problem. As soon as your turrets are gone, you don't get that same ability to take single target fights.
Baiting out a little bit of engage is Mako, having a much better game game for the moment. We'll see if the series does continue, and feeling a lot more comfortable in the Rakan. It feels like Rakan is definitely kind of now the staple of AD carries. You know, it feels like you have to be able to play this kind of a champion. It feels like it's just natural within the LPL, but good resistance here from LGD as they know they have got the double AD carries. They're able to kind of just hold off the pushes coming out here from EDG for the moment.
Jin Zhao has flash. There's a chance for a multi-man knock-up. Oh, that's it!
Yep, they're going to look for it, but the Moonlight Vigil goes completely wide, and now Jin Zhao is left without a hope or a prayer. He goes down straight away. Ala pops the dominance after TPing in on the backside. He's looking for try and catch on to LPC or HYCAN. He'll take either of the AD carries. Goes golden, almost like a trophy to EDG as they look to try and end off this game. Decade will fall down, and eventually HYCAN just about gets the buster shot out, but it's all too little too late. EDG find themselves 5 for none, or 4 for none. And honestly, they're going to be able to take out the rest of these outer turrets, no problem whatsoever.
It's been a bit like death by 1,000 cuts this game for LGD. EDG have won in slight amounts in the early game around some of those objectives, racked up to Assault, racked up to eventually huge game-breaking fights like this one. Golded is now well and truly out of control. 3 items coming in towards Fofo. They'll be able to return to the map with even more force after this point. Towers continually falling in. Despite the game not being over at this point, feels like that kind of fight is kind of your last chance saloon, because you can see at this point, if Jin Zhao is the person going into the front line, even with ults, it just doesn't matter. This is with the damage reduction active. Still gets absolutely obliterated. And you can see there's a bit of disconnect in these team fights from LGD. They're not really getting the damage layered on top of the engage. I get it's a little bit difficult when you're got lower range weapons with something like the Aphelios and you don't have an infernal, like an Infernal ult throw over the top, but they are really struggling to follow up on these engages.
And again, it's just kind of feels like this has just been LGD's problem, you know, lack of commitment or even just lack of communication around the commitment. And they need to kind of go for themselves. Mako gonna hop over the wall because they know a Baron is gonna be spawning here, and with EDG having so much AD damage and even just the Maokai as well, that they will shred this because of the team comp they've kind of built for themselves. Jin Zhao already so close to being put down into the slaughterhouse. Being turned into some minced beef for the bolognese later, and EDG straight onto the Baron. We are going to see Jin Zhao over the top here. I mean, he's going to look for a flank, but now he's completely separated from his team. This is a 5v4, and Jin Zhao is nowhere to be found. He's kind of like, a bit awkward. Sorry, guys. I'll try and make a move now as he flashes in to make something happen, but the AD carries just haven't been able to set their feet. They haven't been able to move the moves here. JJ will fall at the end of it, but he's only sacrificing himself for a full ace in favor of EDG. The TPs are going to come out. They're going to try and barrel it down top and mid, and this is going to be game one over to EDG.
I mean, the steak's been delivered to the wrong table. It's come late. It's a little undercooked. I think I'll be sending that one back to the chef because Jin Zhao was cooking with the engage, and it does not taste particularly sweet for LGD. Awkward moment around that Baron. Yes, it was a desperate last fight. It was always going to be a difficult play for them, but EDG grind out. Fairly dominant game one.
It was a bit rocky in the first few minutes, but slowly but surely EDG found themselves just too far ahead, too clean and composed, and LGD now one game away from being knocked out of playoffs.
Got to keep our eyes on that, of course. If they are to lose this series today, LGD, as we will keep reminding you, cannot make playoffs. EDG on the other side, they're at 6-6 in terms of series score right now. They're currently in the playoffs bracket, and the teams which could displace them from playoffs, we need to